Right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Apologize. Got pulled into something there at the last second, and also my camera's not working. Um, so I apologize. You guys don't get to see me. I'm sure everyone's bummed. Um, but I guess before we do roll call and get started, it looks like we do have our applicant here. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through our preamble. This is the November 21st, 2024 meeting of the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee. Our virtual meeting regulations and procedures. The meeting shall be conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the start of any presentation. The recused committee member will then leave the meeting for the duration of the case discussion. The chair will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call of the committee. The administrator will then introduce the first project. The meeting will then be turned over to the applicant to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the committee. Once the presentation is concluded, the administrator will provide background information when applicable and read any received public comments. The committee will then begin deliberations and project review. If you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand feature, although we tend to be a little more casual in this committee, more of a discussion. After deliberations and review concludes, the committee will render its recommendation and or motion, and then the applicant may leave once the project review is complete. Since we only have the one agenda item, and at that point, unless there are committee or administrative reports, the chair can adjourn the meeting. Regarding community comments, any and all community members may provide their written comments, thoughts, or questions regarding projects presented to the committee. Community members may also telephone their comments or questions to the committee administrator. All comments, thoughts, or questions must be submitted to the committee administrator no later than 48 hours prior to the start of the meeting. Public comment received after the deadline will not be heard by the committee. Public comment will be collected by Landmark staff and sent to the committee members for review prior to the scheduled meeting, and Landmark staff will summarize any received comments during the meeting. The applicant of the project is under no obligation to answer any community questions. Community members are invited to attend the Design Review Advisory Committee meetings, but there will be no open public comment period. As a reminder, all projects are being reviewed using the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and are being considered for the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. All projects are considered on a case-by-case basis. The Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee makes recommendations to the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. Recommendations are not final actions. Depending on the scope of the project, submissions may be approved administratively or will need to be reviewed by the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. If that's the case, projects will be scheduled at the next available commission meeting after the action is taken. So with that, let's see, is Adam Chair here? Phil, it looks like I don't see Nia here, so I guess that makes our vice chair chair. So Phil, whenever you're ready.
Sure.
I'm happy to do roll call.
Calling the November 21st, 2024 Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee to order. And Dan, could you call roll?
Sure. Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Flaherty?
Here.
Mr. Frondorf?
Here.
Ms. Lamb? Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Persons?
Here.
Mr. Trevisano?
Here.
Ms. Marinucci? And Mr. Talley.
Here.
All right, Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum, so I'll call our first case, HOC 24-34 at 5222 Lorraine Avenue. Requesting painted signage. We have a representative from Ohio City Screen Printing here. Their presentation is, the extent of the presentation is just on this one page. I know Jessica on our staff is kind of trying to get as much info as possible, but yeah, this is what we have to review at this point. So yeah, if the representatives from Ohio City Screen Printing could, I guess, identify themselves and go ahead with your presentation, talk us through what you're proposing. We'll go from there.
Hi, my name's Wayne. This is Mandy. We're equal parts owners, family business. Yeah, pardon pardon the minimalist approach. It's the first time dealing with anything like this, so I figured we can get the point across. It's our 5th year in business. We've bounced around a little bit, and we just landed in what we'd like to think is our forever home, right behind the Judith there on 5222. I'm good friends with Alan from Old Soul Sign Co., which I'm assuming you've seen some of his work. He has quite a bit of it around town. So with the landlord's blessing and a bit of inspo from him, he propositioned that a nice simple smokestack just to identify ourselves in the neighborhood. Simple, short, and sweet, just to kind of direct traffic towards us and away from the main front building, and then just a marking to let people know where we're at. I wasn't sure what type of scales and all the blueprints and stuff like that, so I gathered what I could. We are pretty busy as we're parents and business owners trying to work, and we just relocated. We're about settled in now, so wanted to basically get on the board and see what we can do, and get everybody's blessing if it's something that can be done.
Well, thank you for bringing it to us so we can take a look. Is there any, I'm going to open it up to the committee in just a second. Is there any like lighting proposed for it, or is it really just screen printing on brick? And then I don't know if Dan, you know the answer to this. I mean, does it fit within like signage sizing requirements? Like they're not required to get any kind of variance for it, right?
That is unclear. I think it depends where their entrance is, whether they're allowed signage by code. So that's something I don't have an answer for, but I can certainly work on getting one, as we move forward.
Okay.
Yeah, like square footage wise and everything, I'm guessing it falls within allowable, but yeah, I don't think we've gotten any feedback from zoning, but I will check while you guys discuss.
Okay. So I don't have a problem with this. I think it looks nice, but I am going to open it up to the committee for discussion.
Angelo here, and I agree with you, Phil. I think we paint historic brick buildings all over the town. I think this is pretty simple. I think generally we learn more about the measurements, but I know also Sign has always done really high quality work. So I think conceptually, I generally like this.
I don't have any problem with the concept, but normally we take a pause at painting the historic brick because of its potential to damage the historic brick. But I know that there's also paints available that allow the brick to breathe and to mitigate those risks. Can you tell me about the paint that you intend on using?
I would divert to the professional. Like I said, Alan was the proposed, and he, from speaking with my actual landlords, the building owners, he referenced that it wasn't necessarily historic. Like I don't know if it fell into the cards, so that would be totally diverted to the sign writer. If I'm sure he knows if there's anything possible that would be the nicest approach possible. But as again, I don't paint signs or buildings, so that would be a question I could ask him. But we were going more towards like a faux vintage, almost like a dated ghost sign, but modern. So
Yeah, I have no problem with the sign, the style, the placement, the size, any of it. Just the materials that's applied to the brick, that it's removable. And I think Sherwin-Williams, I wish Margaret was on this call, sells a product that allows the moisture to breathe through that paint on the brick. And that's my only concern.
If I could interject, if you choose a paint that has a mineral silicate, that will allow it to breathe. Also, do you know if the chimney is in use?
it's not.
Okay. So that helps. but definitely I would recommend something that's a mineral silicate, like a chyme coating. Latex paint would not be recommended because it's not breathable. And then if you do that over top of the mortar joints, that's also going to make those not breathable, which you definitely need those to be. So whether historic or not, treating that surface in a way that allows the brick to breathe and not spall is necessary to keep it intact.
Noted. Noted. Thank you.
Yeah, I like Amoros. I mean, if you're going for a ghost look, then the chyme stain is 100% the way to go. If you're going for solid, then we generally go for an elastomeric style paint that has to be solid, but that goes the opposite of breathability. But I'm 100% on board with this style, and especially with the chyme staining, I think that'll be a really nice addition.
Thanks.
But I would definitely recommend you test that before you put that up there, because chyme is it's a tricky finish to get right and to get the look you want. It looks very different, call it in a can than on. So I would try and test that with your installer before you actually put that up on that chimney stack.
Thank you.
Is that at the top of the chimney stack? Is there like a piece missing, or is that part of the design of that little coping cap right above the P?
That was just a thing from whatever photograph. So I can't really closely. I believe
Okay.
there, but the inside and bottom of that smokestack is no longer in service. So it's just kind of a hollow shell at this point.
Okay, I just want to make sure it doesn't need any kind of like repointing, or it doesn't need to it's not gonna fall.
Oh no, the roof was just redone along with some sealing of everything else before we moved in. So I hope
Okay.
either.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve as presented with the sole condition that it be done in the paint that allows the brick to breathe.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Like,
And Dan, could you call roll?
Sure thing. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Flaherty,
Yes.
Mr. Frondorf,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Persons,
yes.
Mr. Trivisano,
Yes.
and Mr. Talley.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we have a unanimous approval. Right. I guess, Wayne, Mandy, we will be in touch about next steps. I'll try and get an answer about the variance question. If it does require a variance, you have to go to the Landmarks Commission because they can grant you the variance. Otherwise, you'd have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and our process is just easier and quicker to get through. So I will look into that issue and get back to you on that and let you know what the next steps are, hopefully tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we don't have any other cases, so unless you have a chair's report, Bill, that you wanted to.
I do not have a chair's report. Do have a question. The Landmarks office, that's at City Hall, 601 Lakeside.
Correct, yeah, room 519.
Okay, gotcha. All right, yeah, with that, I will call the.
Can I ask a super quick question?
Sure.
Dan, I saw that Bridgeworks went back to Landmarks. Is that not coming to our committee?
Correct, so it went to Landmarks a few meetings ago, and they gave it a partial approval, like they approved the first couple floors, like the foundation of the first 2 floors. They came back last meeting, basically to try and get the final approval of the rest of the elevations. The commission, I think, echoed a lot of your comments in that they wanted to see a little more depth and play in that south elevation. They wanted, I think it's just to, kind of like it's fine, but they want it to be something more visually interesting. So we recommended kind of forming a working group. So we're actually meeting with several architects on the Landmarks Commission And next week, and I've invited Mr. Talley as the vice chair and as an architect to join us to kind of give your guys' perspective and his own, personal expertise, basically to try and work out what would be acceptable and what could actually work on that south elevation to give it that depth and more interest. Because it's been said at every single meeting, I think, that south elevation needs to be more, and they, I think, are finally starting to understand that we're serious. So we'll be meeting with them early next week, and then their anticipation is to get on our December 12th Landmarks Commission agenda for final approval. So since it was an amendment to an approval, kind of, it doesn't come back to you guys.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, because the condition came from Landmarks directly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. So short question, really long-winded answer.
No, that all makes sense. Thank you.
Hey, and Dan, I have one quick question as well. A while ago, though I wasn't here for it, the committee looked at a house at Randall and Whitman. And that house is, as we approach winter, deteriorating significantly and very quickly. And it's an important house right there on that corner. Is there anything that we could do for code enforcement or to, I suspect what's happening is a bit of demolition by neglect.
Yep. Yeah. Because it received a record or an approval by the Landmarks Commission with some conditions, and we never received the final information from the applicant we needed, so that they still didn't have a permit. I've noticed that it's gotten worse. I would recommend, and I'll do the same, emailing the Cleveland 311. Sure, the email address right, because they've changed the building housing complaint line.
Sorry, is this the one where the guy basically threatened to make it Section 8 housing?
That's the one. Yeah. Yeah.
So no,
he went to Landmarks. We had I guess, more civil meeting. I feel, Alex, if you missed this one, you missed.
It's a shit show.
It was.
I heard I missed some fireworks.
Phil's words.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was a shit show.
I would, if you guys, I mean, if everyone could, just email 311@clevelandohio.gov, and I can pull up the address real quick. And I think, the more people that complain, the more likely it's to get action. Building and housing tends to, basically they get a complaint, someone doing work without permit, or as soon as someone applies for a permit, they'll basically say, okay, well, if they're in the process, we'll back off. But, we'd much rather they keep the complaint on record and keep a violation on record until a permit has been issued, because as we've seen a number of times, someone will apply for a permit, not go through with the whole process, never end up pulling a permit, but they've gotten building and housing off their backs for a short time. So that address is 4104 Whitman.
Dan, are you?
So,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Wade.
I was gonna I'm in the block club that this house is in, and it's come up in many meetings, and I know we've made a note to residents to, reach out to 311. Do you know how many complaints they've had, if it's been effective? The last action that I'm aware of is a neighbor did have a picture of someone going into the house through a window, and I believe that Building and Housing did board that window. But in terms of, I passed it yesterday, I think, and there were a bunch of tree branches and stuff on the porch, and the front steps were falling down. So there's a lot of deterioration that's very visible that I don't even know was there recently. So I'm just, my concern is how effective that is, and if there's other steps we can take. And maybe this is more of a community conversation. And so if it feels like, this board is not, where we should be having this talk, then that's totally fine too. I just, it's just been a very big topic of conversation, and I'm concerned that 311 isn't working.
Yeah, I would, yeah, I'm sure it's been a topic of conversation. It's because yeah, when you see it, it's getting worse. You know, it's been bad
Yeah.
for a while, and it's getting worse, especially with winter coming. It looks like there were a couple complaints entered or closed board up request and a complaint on the 8th, one on the October 22nd. Violation was issued. This is the one from earlier this year that resulted in the him coming before us, and you can see this is stuck pending landmarks because we never got what we needed. As far as the details to issue his permit, and since then it's just kind of set. So you can see each of these, complaints here should get logged in when you make it. So at this point, there have been 2 complaints made. It feels like there should probably, I feel like more people have probably complained, but I think the more that can be officially logged in, the better. Like the more, unfortunately, it's a case where it kind of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So, if Landmark's office is complaining, as well as, 5, 6 people from the local design review committee from the neighborhood, just let your block clubs know. Basically inundate 311 with complaints and they'll do something. I think if you also couldn't hurt to let the councilman know that this is a concern for you. I don't want to inundate his email, but including him in the 311 complaint would certainly let him know that this is an issue that is of serious concern to the neighbors in the neighborhood. So I don't know if it's him or if it's Katie Huff, but yeah, I would think making sure he's aware of it and that complaints have been made to 311, because if 311 isn't working, he's in a position that he can make noise about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll get to emailing.
Yeah. So we've all got a homework assignment. All right. Any other questions or anything else?
I guess with that we are good.
All right. I think if you want to adjourn.
Yeah. So I'm adjourning the November 21st, 2024 Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you all. And have a good Thanksgiving.